Hello and welcome to The Print. This is Ratan Priya, and I have with me entrepreneur and author Jaithirth Rao, and we are going to talk about the crisis in Venezuela, Trump's capture of Nicolas Maduro, and the discourse around it. So, Jerry, what everybody is asking right now is what is going to happen to Venezuela after Maduro, who is going to stand up to Trump, and what will become of the country's economy now.
I don't know. I don't think anyone knows what is going to happen. What I can tell you, I lived there long time ago,
Yeah.
um, 1983, 1984, 2 full years, um, 40 years ago, 41 years ago, is that it's a fairly complex and complicated country, and a simple solution is not going to work.
Why
I
do you
think
say a complex and complicated country? What did you observe there
the
that makes it a
Venezuela,
complex?
Venezuela is in South America. It was part of the Spanish Empire. Caracas, which is the capital of Venezuela, had a Spanish viceroy. They had several viceroys in
Yeah.
South America, and one was there. During the Napoleonic Wars, when Napoleon invaded Spain, many of these countries declared independence. And originally there was a country called Grand Colombia, which is Colombia, Venezuela, Panama, all put together, which was led by Simon Bolivar. He was the leader of the independence of that part of South Africa. And eventually they all split up this way, and now we have three countries, Colombia, Venezuela, and Panama. The leadership came from the Spanish aristocracy and middle class, which had settled in South America. So Bolivar himself was a descendant of aristocratic Castilians. And that's the way the countries emerged. They became independent, but the leadership and control remained with descendants of Spanish stock. But unlike North America, where white Caucasian settlers became the majority, in South America the majority remained Native American people, indigenous people.
Right.
And in the
So
case
you
of,
mentioned in your column also the what everybody is getting wrong is that there's a left-right divide in Venezuela, and your argument is that it's not just that; there's also a race ethnic factor.
there is definitely a left right divide. I'm not denying that.
But apart from that, there is also a race ethnicity
Yeah.
factor. Would you
I
elaborate for our
think
viewers?
that is what Chavez really symbolized. Chavez was a leftist, there's no doubt about it. But he was also the first kind of indigenous person to become head of state. Otherwise, in free independent Venezuela, 200 years, basically the power rotated between different families of Spanish, Caucasian, white origin, although they were a minority. Look, unlike in North America, Canada, and the US, the whites are a majority. That's not the case in many South American countries, with the possible exception of Argentina, Ecuador, Bolivia, Peru, Colombia, Venezuela. The majority are Native American populations, in Venezuela with a little bit of African American because of its proximity to Trinidad. But otherwise, and they never got a say in the running of the country. The running of the
Okay.
country was always by descendientes, they were called descendants of the original kind of Spanish stock.
From Chavez to Maduro, two back-to-back terms, they were holding positions of power. So why is the conflict there? I mean, when you say that they were a
So
majority
that
of
is the
these indigenous
that is the
people
point.
were not getting,
That's exactly the point. In the recent past,
yeah,
the so-called subaltern groups have gained power. It's not just that they're leftists, but they also
okay,
represent the majority group which has not had power before. And the alternate candidate, this controversial Nobel laureate Machado, she represents the old. She's a Spanish Portuguese descent, what I call in my article an Iberian aristocrat. You know, she comes from that rico, rich Venezuela, thin upper layer.
okay.
And therefore, this is a conflict not only between left and right, not only between two political groups, but there's an underlying issue of identity groups and their access to power, and that the majority group has only in recent times acquired power, and therefore, when you try to reverse that, change that, there could be great instability. In fact, even civil war, I have predicted.
Okay, where does the how does it make sense, or how much is it justified for US to step in like that? Because I mean, there was this joke going around on Twitter that in old times CIA used to finance military coups to steal other countries' resources, but now Trump is doing it directly. What do you have to say about that?
Listen, the point, there's a simple thing. First of all, Chavez lucked out when he first came to power. Oil prices went up, and he was able to use those revenues to give subsidies to his base constituency, the
Hmm.
Venezuelan underclass. But he
Okay.
never invested or did anything to make Venezuela a productive economy. And I don't blame him. Nobody in Venezuela has done that since 1973. Ever since oil prices went up, every government in Venezuela has been of this kind. Now, what happened at the same time is that Chavez got very cocky. He got very arrogant. And
Okay.
he thought he could defy the United States. Uh, and
So are you saying that Maduro is paying the price for what Chavez did by, instigating the
yes,
US?
yes, but Maduro
Okay.
also continued many of Chavez's policies. Maduro
Okay.
also, especially rhetoric, unnecessary rhetoric and unnecessary closeness to Cuba. Now,
Hmm.
Cuba is a red rag to the bull as far as the US is concerned. And there was no need for Venezuela to become so close to Cuba or to be
Hmm.
seen as becoming so close to Cuba openly. So all those mistakes were made. So it's almost a
But
Greek
is
tragedy
it
in the
still,
making.
sorry?
It's a Greek tragedy in the making. You could have predicted that sooner
Okay.
or later there would have been a clash with the hegemon.
But is it still justified for US to step in like that?
Justified is neither here nor there. We are in the world of realism. I don't think you can be a smallish country in the Western Hemisphere and
Hmm.
be antagonistic to the United States. It's as simple as that.
Okay.
You can't do things that are, you have to be realistic. Yeah, you can have an independent policy, but not something that is totally uh, opposed to the interests of the United States. You have to find some via media, and that's what an intelligent leader would do. And Chavez was an intelligent leader. I think he would have done it. Unfortunately, the oil curse hurt him. When he came to power, the oil prices went up. So he
Hmm.
had a lot of money, and
Hmm.
therefore he kind of, it went to his head. Poor Maduro is paying the price because when Maduro came to power, oil prices started softening and the US sanctions started hurting. They started really crippling that country. So
Hmm.
Maduro has kind of had bad luck draw out there.
Okay. So, what do you, for people who are not well versed with this situation, what according to you was the trigger point for Trump?
Oh, it's been building a long time.
Okay.
That's what I said. It's a Greek tragedy. It's not that Biden particularly loved Maduro or Venezuela. So it's nothing to do with Trump. This is an
Okay.
old thing. It's been building. Sooner or later, there would have been some kind of intervention, some kind of action, because
Okay.
Venezuela is too close to the United States. It is a rich country in terms of mineral resources. It's a poor country in terms of per capita GDP because they have wrecked the economy. And I don't blame only Chavez and Maduro. I blame Venezuelan governments going back to 1973. Ever since the oil prices rose, uh, every Venezuelan government has been profligate, has been having no sense of fiscal or monetary rectitude, and they have
Hmm.
just gone uh, uh, on a spree, disincentivizing local manufacture, local producers, and
Hmm.
incentivizing imports. This is not a very sensible economic strategy to have. And Chavez, every time oil prices go up, they have a few years of a good time. The
Hmm.
leaders are happy, they strut around, make speeches. When oil prices soften, they get into trouble, or when dollar interest rates go up, they get
Yeah.
into trouble. So this is a thing that was going to happen.
Hmm.
Chavez and Maduro precipitated a crisis with the United States that
Hmm.
sooner or later was going to happen. This is not about morality or justice or legality. Uh, this is about reality.
So this
If
was
you
inevitable. This
if
this
you
was always.
provoke if you provoke the lion in your jungle, the lion's going to act. So if you are a smaller player in the jungle,
Hmm.
you adapt to the
Hmm.
lion's behavior. And that's what most countries do. And most countries who do provoke, they do get
Yeah.
into trouble. And that's. I'm not justifying what
Yeah. That.
Trump
But you're
has
saying
done or the
this.
US has done.
Yeah. You're
I'm
saying
just
this is what.
saying that this kind of thing is, and again, the particular action may appear extreme, etc. But something along these lines, something resembling this,
Huh.
was sooner or later inevitable. Now, Chavez was the first, at least in Venezuela. I think in Bolivia and Peru also they have had these um, uh, indigenous people leaders who have over the last couple of decades made their
Okay.
impact. Chavez was the first, and he became popular and began running the country. Incidentally, he could have been a rightist, but he wasn't. He also happened to be a leftist. Okay, and He also was very popular. He's almost considered a saint by many Venezuelans because of the subsidies and freebies that he gave to his people. Because he was lucky. At the time that he came to power, oil prices climbed, and Venezuela had this feeling of being a rich country.
Hmm.
Now, um, he's gone. Oil prices start softening. This anti-American rhetoric and this needless alliance with Cuba provokes sanctions. I think
Hmm.
Venezuela may be the second highest sanctioned country in the world after Iran. And lower oil prices and sanctions, and then some very clumsy nationalizations. You can nationalize foreign companies, many people do it, but you don't pay proper compensation, you do it in a way that's clumsy and that's kind of rancorous, if I
Hmm.
can use that word. Then what happens is you lose access to technology.
Yeah.
You are not able to keep your oil fields running. You're not able to get the spare parts for drilling, for getting the oil out of the ground. Uh, so you get into a spiral where oil production declines. By now, prices have declined. The sanctions are hurting in many ways. So the economy goes for a six, and Venezuela really suffered from that.
Hmm. Do
But
you think
the
there
problem,
are lessons for India to draw from this?
I don't think so. I don't think India, Venezuela, there's no any comparisons here. Um, but I think there are lessons to be drawn for any commodity exporting economy,
Hmm.
uh, because if you get into a vicious cycle where prices drop and you also upset some strong powers like the US at the same time, they
Yeah.
impose sanctions, then you're in real trouble. And that's what happened to Venezuela. My real point in this article is not what has happened, but what you asked earlier. What about the future? I don't think Machado is a good solution
Why do you think Machado is not a good
because she
solution?
represents the white Caucasian, Spanish, Portuguese, Iberian aristocracy.
Okay.
And they're a very small number in the country. And I think if she's propped up, you could have something like a civil war. I think the better
Okay.
deal for the Americans to make is with the present um, Chavez Maduro um, uh, clique um,
Hmm.
without Maduro, because Maduro has obviously upset them so much that they have
Hmm.
removed them. Uh,
Hmm.
so I think that is the better solution, and that is probably what is going to happen. You've now got Maduro out anyway. He was making speeches that you didn't like. You pulled him out.
So that
Now,
an indigenous person is representing the country
yeah,
in the end.
somebody who can bring more stability and won't
Hmm.
precipitate a civil war.
Okay.
That's that's what I would recommend. If you look at all of Maduro's inner circle, they are
Yeah.
not white Caucasian, uh,
Hmm.
Spanish, Castilian descent people.
Yeah.
So you can make your choice which one of them you want. But there is likely to be greater stability if you make that choice.
Okay.
That's my
So
point here. My point
yeah.
really is that people like us in faraway countries like India,
Yeah.
we see everything simplistically left, right, rich, poor,
Yeah.
pro American, anti American. I think those are all ways of looking
Yeah.
at the world. But really, what is true here is that it's a complex country with a small white Caucasian Hispanic minority
Hmm.
being in positions of power and influence for a long time, excluding the native indigenous majority from power and influence. That is why Chavez was popular and successful. He represented them, the
Okay.
subaltern group, if you will, and Maduro also represented them. Uh, they made some mistakes. As I said, they should not have provoked the bear or the lion or whatever you
The
want to
lion.
call the big power in that neighborhood. You don't do that. They did that.
Yeah.
And therefore, sooner or later, if not this intervention, some interventions like this were going to happen. They've happened
Oh.
in the past in other countries, and it would have happened in this country also. It has happened. And I
Now,
won't come.
on the my ending note, you said that because Venezuela was, poking the bear, the lion, that is why it was inevitable. But now Trump is talking about taking Greenland. He's also talking about doing nuclear weapon testing on his will. I mean, what do you have to say about that? This is like the isn't this like the new age of U.S. imperialism where everything is just like crazy out in the open?
I think journalists like you spend too much time focusing on Trump, his rhetoric, and his actions. I'm an old man. I focus on the continuities and discontinuities in history. To my
So you don't
mind, to
seriously.
my mind, American intervention in Central and South America against leftist leaders, especially against leaders who have indulged in anti-American rhetoric, goes back a couple of hundred years. It's not new. So I am looking at those patterns and what are the variants to those patterns that we should pay attention to.
Okay.
Now, incidentally, even before America entered the Second World War, even before Pearl Harbor, America had garrisoned Greenland and Iceland. So the idea that America doesn't take Iceland and Greenland as kind of extensions of its coast is ridiculous. They've always felt that way.
Okay.
And they've taken those actions, as I said, not during wartime, before the war. So, uh, and they already have bases in Greenland. So these are not new things. And Greenland is much closer to America than to Denmark. So, those are realities. So what happens, we will see. But I think you should stop looking at this as some kind of aberration because of Trump's personality.
Okay.
These
So you're
are these
saying
are
this
these
is
are
how you
tendencies.
have
These are tendencies. These are in fact, there's greater continuity than you would think. These are
okay.
tendencies and patterns that have
Of a US
existed for a
president?
long time.
Okay. On that note, thank you so much.
Thank,
Thank you so much for your time.
thank, thank you.